Hello class, today we're going to do lesson 6.4, which is on something called polynomials. So our first vocab word is terms. Terms are really just parts of the expression that are added or subtracted. So terms are separated by the operations addition or subtraction. That is why 3x to the third y squared z is one term. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Well, if I had 3 plus 2, 3 is one term, and 2 is another term. The reason why that there are two terms here is because they are separated by an addition sign. So this is 2 terms. It doesn't matter if you have variables. So if I had put an x in here right next to the 3, it is still 2 terms. Now, if I did like minus a y, well, now we've added a new term, okay? Because now we have another operation here, the subtraction sign. And so now we have 1, 2, 3 terms. Now, what I was talking about down here is that if you do not see an addition or subtraction sign, it's all just one term. So for example, if I had 3 times 2 x y squared, right? There's a lot going on in this one, but there is no addition or subtraction sign. So this entire thing is just one term. Okay, the word polynomial is an expression of more than two algebraic terms. This word poly, it really just means many. You cannot have a variable with a negative exponent, a variable in the denominator, or have a variable inside a square root symbol. Now, to be quite honest, for today's lesson, I'm not super concerned if we understand like what a polynomial means, but it's still good to talk through. So these are examples of things that are not polynomials right here. Okay, really what a polynomial is like, if I'm looking at this example up at the top, there's an addition or subtraction sign. So it means that they have to have more than one term. Okay, so let's look at the word monomial in this box here. So mono actually means one. So that means they have one term. If I'm looking at all of these examples, none of them have an addition or subtraction sign in between like two numbers or variables, so that's why they're all one term. The word bi, just like bicycle, has two wheels, right? It means bi means two. So all of these have two terms. So we have a 3n and a 4. Why is it two terms? Because it's separated by an addition sign. Okay, we have an x to the third and a 7, separated by an addition sign. Okay, the word trinomial is talking about three terms, thinking about the word tri, meaning like tricycle, has 3 wheels. All right, if I look at these examples, they have 1, 2, 3 terms. Okay, so all of this stuff is just a little background knowledge on something that we're going to do right now, which is we're going to take expressions and we're going to break them up into our different vocab words. So these following vocab words are really like the main part of today's lesson. Okay, we have the word variable, which we've actually used in class before. A variable is a letter used to represent one or more numbers. So for example, in a lot of our lessons, we were using n to represent some number, okay? I want you to know that it doesn't matter what letter we use. So we could also use x, or y, or z, okay? In this example right here, which I'm going to refer to a lot, the variable is the letter x. Now I have a note here that says every variable has a coefficient. So even like when I just have an n, if there's no number in front of it, it's the number 1. Well, what does that coefficient mean? It is the number that is in front of a variable. So, for example, in this one, our coefficient is the number 5. Back here, I just pointed to like n, and there wasn't originally a number in front of it, so I put the number 1. Just like if I had written down the letter x, there's no number, there's no coefficient in front of it, so that means it's the coefficient of 1. Okay, now we have the word constant, and that is just a number with no variable. So in our example over here, the constant is the number, now this is important, it's the number -3. So we are always going to assume that numbers are positive if there's no plus or minus in front of them. Okay, but if you ever see a minus, you're going to treat that number as a negative. So I think that's going to be more clear as we go through an actual example. So let's take a look at example 1. It says identify the terms, like terms, coefficients, and constants in the following. Okay, so, and you know what, actually in this one, I'm just noticing here, we don't have to identify the like terms today. We're going to do that in the future. Okay, so example 1, it says 8y minus 7 plus 2y. Well, all of the terms literally just mean each of these things that you see. So we have 8y, then I'm going to do a comma. We have, do you see how it's a minus 7? That means we're going to write down -7. And then we're going to write a comma. And then the next one is, I see that it's a plus 2y, but if I see a plus, I can just not write the plus and assume that it's positive. So this 2y is a positive. So I'm literally just like writing down exactly what I saw and putting a comma right in between them. Okay, now the variables. What variables, aka also known as what letters, do you see in this one? Well, the only letter I see is a y. So I'm going to write down a y. All right, coefficients. Coefficients, that is the number in front of a variable. So if this y is my variable, I'm looking for the number in front, which is the 8. Here's a y. The number in front is the 2. So we're going to write down an 8, comma, and a 2. And we're specifically just looking for the number here. And I do want to pay attention, this 2, it was a positive 2, so that's why I just wrote down a positive 2. If that was a minus sign, then I would have put a -2, which we'll get to shortly. All right, and constants. So those are the numbers with no variable. So that's a -7. Okay, let's go through a couple more examples like this. So terms. I'm just going to look at my example, and I'm going to write down all of those things that I just underlined with a comma in between. So I'm going to write down 7. I'm going to write down -5h, comma, -2, comma, and -k. All right, the variables. So I'm going to look at my problem here, and I'm going to see, oh, here's an h, and here's a k. Okay, so I'm going to write down an h, comma, k. Those are the letters. Coefficients, that's the number that's in front of the variable. So h and k are my two variables. So what's the number in front here? Well, that is a -5 because there's a minus. And I don't see a number in front of this k, but remember that 1 is my hidden number in math. So that means that this one is a -1. All right, now constants, those are the numbers with no variable. So I see that 7 does not have a variable, and then 2 doesn't, but look here, there's a minus in front of the 2. So that means it's a -2. Okay, if we flip over to the back side, we're going to do the exact same thing. All right, so let's look at the terms. I'm going to literally just write down every single thing that I see here and include the negative sign if I see that. So I have a 2k, comma, plus 15, which just means positive 15, minus m, which means a negative m. Then we have a negative 3, positive n, and negative 7p. All right, I'm going to write down all of the variables. So I'm going to look here and see where do I see the letters. All right, I've got a k, an m, an n, and a p. So I just write those down, k, m, n, and p. Coefficients, those are the numbers in front of the variables. So we've got a 2. Now there's no number in front of the m, so that means it's a 1. It's our hidden number. But it is a negative 1 because there's a minus sign there. There is no number in front of the n, so our hidden number is 1, and that's a positive 1 because there's a plus sign. The number in front of p is negative 7. Okay, and our constants, those are the numbers that are by themselves. So we've got a positive 15, we've got a negative 3, and that is it. Okay, one more example that we're going to talk through. We write down the terms. So again, everything that I see, and include the negative if I see it. So there's a negative 8, it's a negative 4c. Next you see a 7, positive 7. Next you see a negative c, a negative 12c, and a negative 2. Okay, variables. Those are all of the letters. So I see a C, and actually those are all the same. I see 3 C's, so I only have to write down one of the C's. Now I'm looking for the numbers. Coefficients mean the number in front of the variable. So we have a negative 4 in front of that first C. We do not have a number in front of the second C, but I remember that our hidden number in math is a 1. So because there's a minus sign, this is a negative 1. And what's the number in front of the third C? It's a negative 12. Okay, and my constants are all of those numbers that are by themselves with no variable. So negative 8, positive 7, and negative 2. Okay, so the objective for today is really just identifying what is a term, what is a variable, what is a coefficient, and what is a constant. I recommend that as you're doing today's assignment, you have one of these examples in front of you, and you also have these vocabulary words, including the term that's up here. So just look back at these notes so that you can identify yourself what are the terms, the variables, the coefficients, and the constants. Okay, please reach out if you have any questions. I hope you guys are having a great day, and see you next time.